Aloha, everyone, and welcome. I am Shanti Asher, the Pacific Islander Community Outreach Specialist with the Office of Economic Revitalization. Today's webinar is just in time for the busy summer season of family fun and community events. It is the do's and don'ts of city parks. It will help you understand when you need a permit for an event at a park, how to get a permit, and what kind of permitted events you can have at a park. This webinar will have the information you need to plan a church event, a sports league, or a cultural celebration at one of our beautiful city parks. Our guest today is Bryce Okamoto. He is the Prince of Permits at City Parks. We are grateful he will share his insights with us. The webinar will be in two parts. First, Bryce will cover the basics of permitting, and we will have a short and Q&A after that. Then Bryce will go into more detail about food, drinks, and concessions at permitted events. After that, we will have another Q&A. To ask question, just drop it in the Facebook chat. We will answer questions in the order received. Bryce, welcome.
Thank you, Shanti, for the introduction. Again, my name is Bryce Okamoto. I am the Park Permits Officer here at Department of Parks and Recreation. I'm here to cover the do's and don'ts of city parks. So if we can go to the first slide. So to get started, how you would start the permit process is you would need to fill out a permit application. The application can be found at the link provided, or you can go to the park themselves. They have hard copy applications where you can fill out. I will make mention that any of our park permit applications needs to have original signature, so we cannot take copies. So please keep that in mind when you do turn in the park applications. Next slide. So when to request a permit. So any organized activity, a sports tournament or league, any type of meetings and meeting rooms or workshops, you have an event, let's say, for example, like a picnic that has 50 or more persons or people, you're going to play or amplify loud music or use loudspeakers. You're going to reserve the use of recreation facilities, including fields, gyms, rooms, and pools. You're also looking at using inflatable bounce houses or other large structures. Or if you're driving any type of vehicle on the grass area. I will make mention that these requests are not the whole list. When it comes to requesting, for example, like I covered the picnic more than 50 or 50 or more people, you have to keep in mind that if you're putting up a large tent structure, for example, but you only have 25 people, you still need to contact the park. One, because the park needs to know that you are attempting to put a bigger than allowed tent, at least per our rules. And two, just to make sure that the field is clear and free. There are events going on typically in these parks, which is why we ask that you contact the parks. But this is not an exhaustive list, so just keep that in mind. Next slide. So again, like I made mention, requesting a permit. We would like for you to work with the park themselves. You would need the event, what type of event you're running. So again, like a picnic, like a sports league, you need to use a basketball court, so on and so forth. You would need to let them know exactly what you're trying to do in the park. You need the dates, the exact dates of when you're looking to reserve these facilities, and the time, the exact time, because they need to know when you're going to be there from setup to take down. And the reason for that being, again, is because it's a public use park. We want to make sure that, again, your event is free and clear from other activities. For example, like you want to run a picnic, let's just, for example, at Kapilani Park, and there's, I don't know, a soccer game going on, for example. We want to make sure that the field that you're trying to use is allowed, one, and two, that it's free, so that you're not interfering and with your event. For a list of all maps of the parks, as well as the contact information, the link is provided. If you do not find the park you are looking to request from, please contact the number that's listed at 808-768-3440. That is to our office here at Permit Office. And we will let you know which number to contact for that park. Just to let you know, some of these parks are unmanned. So basically there are no staff necessarily on site all the time. They normally roam, which is why we ask that you contact us if you're unable to find that phone number so the park staff can help you. From there, you will talk with park staff about your event. Again, the date and time, if it's free, they'll work with you on that. We ask that you request a permit at least 3 weeks before the event, if not sooner. So for example, if you have a picnic and you're looking to bring in 100 people, we ask that you actually do that 6 months in advance, if possible, so that we can make sure that your data is clear, that the location you're looking at is clear, and then that way we can move forward with helping you secure that location. If there are any fees or deposits, you're more than welcome to ask. There are, depending on what type of event you're running. Those that do require a fee or deposit, like example, like if you have over 100 people at a picnic, things like that, the park will let you know exactly what needs to be paid, or if there is any fees or deposits. There may be other permits that you do not need to pay anything. You just need to work with the park. So next slide. So steps for a permit. So you contacted the park, you ask for, the dates, times, availability, it's available. Great. So if there is a fee and or deposit, you would contact the park office you contact our office after the request has been sent to you directly. So what that means is the park will contact you, say, hey, your request is ready. The park permit office has it. Once that occurs, you can come into our office. You can pay either by cash, check, or money order. Once we go ahead and we go through the approval process and we process that, from that point, we will email you your permit. I will make mention that you should have your permit on you. So when you print it out, make sure that when you go to your permitted event, that you have it on you, just in case anybody asks questions, if park staff needs to review it for what, if you're putting up, let's say, a tent, for example, they want to just make sure that the dimensions and everything matches with the permit and what's allowed. If there is no fee with the permit, you will work with the park staff directly. So what that means is you contacted that particular park that you're looking to reserve. They say, hey, there's no fees, but you need to come in, you need to sign terms and conditions. They will work with you directly and they'll work with you on getting the permit to you. I do want to make mention in both cases, if the permit or you cannot print it out for whatever reason, you can do you can do a few things. One, you can come to our office, we can print that for you. You can also go to your park that you're requesting from, they can print that out for you. Or again, if you can find another way to print it, that'd be great. But we're here to help, get you that permit. But again, you need to make sure that the physical copy is on you at all times. So, I do have a question. Oh, and I'll answer that after. Okay, so just as a breakdown, steps to getting a permit. Again, it starts with the permittee. It starts with you as a customer. It then goes to the park. So the park sees, make sure or works with you on availability, dates, times, fees, deposits, whatever is necessary. If there are fees and deposits, it will come to our office. Again, you'll make the payment here. Then we will approve the permit and then send it to you. If for whatever reason, or I'm sorry, not whatever, but if there's no fees attached to it, then the park will issue the permit directly. So you do not go through our office for that. So that's hopefully a simple breakdown of that. So is there any questions on that? Oh, I see one. Okay, so question is, can I request permits for a recurring event, or does each event need its own permit? So this question, while you can get a recurring permit, I will make mention that you would work with the park staff directly. I understand for like league events, baseball, softball, what have you, that there may be different teams, you're looking to play different, in a league, that would be allowed. Certain permits, recurring events are allowed, but I want people to keep in mind that these are public use parks. So we do not, or we try not to have people monopolize the parks because they are for public use and because it should be available for everyone. With that being said, park staff will try to work with you to see what kind of dates we can work with, how long you're looking to run your event, so on and so forth. And again, this is also park dependent. Some parks may not have as much activities going on. Maybe it's a little bit easier to permit versus other parks that would have, a lot more going on. Like, for example, Kapiolani Park, where, a lot of organizations are trying to use the park. So again, working with park staff, trying to figure out what the availability is, what can and cannot be done. It would be good to talk to them when you get started.
Nope, we're open. As long as you get in here like about 3:30.
In terms of, okay, another question that came in, how much are fees and deposits? So this is a little bit too specific. I'll say this. There are a lot of different fees and deposits. For example, driving on grass is like $250. That's a deposit. If nothing is damaged, the fee will, the deposit will go back to you, will be mailed back to you. But there are a lot of different events that have their own fee structure. And that includes certain parks that have their own fee structure. Like, for example, Corp, which has like our main baseball fields and soccer fields and all that, they have their own fee structure. So while I'm not going to get too specific on that, that's why you need to contact park staff. You need to work with them on what types of fees and deposits are necessary. And then you would come to us to make that payment and then finalize your permit. And then one question. Oh, can you request permits for park pools? You can. There are fees for that, but you can come in, you can contact the park, you can contact those certain pool. We have staff specifically for that, and then they can work with you on the pool permit. What type of fees, again, would be necessary, that need to be paid, what type of deposits, and then you come to us and then you will make that payment. Okay, is there any other questions?
Bryce,
Yes.
thank you so much for the first component of your presentation. I'm going through some of the questions that were put
Sure.
on the chat room, and I think those are it for now.
Okay.
So you may continue on, and we will keep you posted on more questions.
Sounds
as they
good.
come. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now that we went over the steps for permit, how to request, and how to get a permit, I want to dive a little bit deeper into what they call temporary concession. So temporary concession is normally, it's used for selling things in the park. The thing about temporary concession is that you have to be a nonprofit organization for the temporary concession, and they must be an IRS approved 501c3 organization. So what does that mean exactly? So 501c3 or nonprofit organization basically means like an association, a corporation, or other type of entity that's operated for like religious, charitable, scientific, cultural, educational, or other nonprofit purposes. They have to be approved by the 501c, by the IRS, because again, the nonprofit organization operates exclusively for that particular cause rather. Again, the nonprofit must be holding an event, production, or activity at the park. So you cannot just be a nonprofit organization and come into the park and say, I want to do, for example, like I want to just get donations. That's not how that works. In the park, you need an event, or you need an event or activity that's sponsored or conducted by a bona fide nonprofit, again, a 501c3, with all proceeds from the event or activity going back to the nonprofit. So what that means is the parks are public use, that's why, and I know I'm using that a lot, but the parks are not meant to be an extension of a business because it's public. It's mainly used for fundraising to help the organization's cause, to help offset, associated costs with like running the event, for example. So I want people to keep in mind that if you're looking to sell anything in the park, and that includes food, that includes products, that the organization needs to be a nonprofit, an IRS approved 501c3 nonprofit. Next slide. So again, for temporary concession, it's needed to sell food or products at the park. Again, a bona fide 501c3 nonprofit has to apply for the permit and temporary concession. The nonprofit needs to give a copy of its 501c3 letter to the permit office. We need to verify that you are a bona fide nonprofit. And then the application along with any supporting documentation. So for example, if you're trying to sell food, we would need Department of Health food permits. We would need certificate of insurance. And again, that needs to be turned in no later than 3 weeks prior to the event. The sooner the better, because when it comes to gathering this information, if we're missing documents, if we're missing certain things, we need to get on that right away. Otherwise, it could jeopardize your temporary concession. Okay. You need to include all vendors and products, foods that you're selling at the park. And then all the items that are being sold should be event related. So what I mean by that is that you cannot just come in with, let's say, like a wholesale t-shirt and just sell that. That would not be allowed in the park. If you have, for example, like I'll use like community organization, they're running like their 100th anniversary. If they have a shirt that says 100th anniversary, with the community organization's name, that would be allowed because it's for that specific event. The profit or the proceeds rather are also going back to the nonprofit organization. That's allowed. What is not allowed is an extension of somebody's business. For-profit making, unless allowed by rules and regulations, is not allowed. So we just want to make that part clear. Okay, next slide. So, sorry. So again, temporary concession can be used to fundraise. Fundraisers may only be held as part of a permitted activity or event. So again, what that means is, let's say you have on a church event, for example, like you're holding a church community event. That's a permitted event. So you want to sell food, for example. Okay, so your permitted event is a church event. Then your food vendor is now your temporary concession. So it is underneath that permit. So again, I just want to make this point clear because I know this is a bit confusing. You have to have an event of some sort, and it has to be permitted in order to get the temporary concession. Okay. Parks, again, are not used in for-profit making purposes unless allowed by rules and regulations. Temporary concession forms are available at our office, so you'd actually come in for that. You would fill it out, bring in, whatever paperwork is necessary. If you have it, like the certificate of insurance and Department of Health permit. But if you are at the beginning stages, it's not necessary per se to bring all that in. Come in, sign up for the temporary concession. We can work with you on the paperwork after the fact. But first things first, you need to get that application over to us so we know exactly how to help
So,
you and
I'm
what you're
gonna
trying
put-
to
I'll
do
go put it
in the park so we can
I
answer
didn't
your
have to work on it,
questions.
but I just wanted
And
to-
then again, completed temporary concession form should be turned into the permit office.
Okay, so
Okay.
now with the parade, the Kanu Hawaii is the nonprofit that's doing the parade.
Sorry.
Okay,
So
does it- so it's
lastly,
in
for temporary
conjunction
concession,
with
again, I know I brought up certificate of insurance. It
the-
is needed for any type of temporary concession. So all food and refreshment sales held in city property must have state of Hawaii Department of Health clearance and comprehensive general liability insurance, including product liability.
Okay.
So any
Only
type of
because,
food, any
I'm
type of
asking
product
for
you're selling in the
insurance,
park,
so
again,
if it's under
needs to have
this, then we gotta
insurance.
go get it
The
again.
certificate of insurance shall
So
name the
you
city and county of
understand
Honolulu and
there's
its
a
officers and employees
nonprofit
as additional insured.
kind of
And then State
monitoring
Department of Health
effort.
clearance is also required where free
Like,
food
okay,
and
then
refreshments
we
are served to the
finish,
general public
if
on
we
city
give
park
them
properties, including
permit, then
department
we're
sponsored
gonna
events. So if you're looking, let's say you're running a community event, you're getting donations, but you're looking to give free food to the public. You still need to get insurance. You need to be covered. You also need to get Department of Health food permit for whatever you're either cooking at the park or serving at the park. And then and again, just to reiterate, there are different amounts for insurance that are necessary or needed, depending on what you're selling and what you're doing in the park. I didn't get into specifics because different events require different amounts of insurance. For example, like you have a surf meet at a beach park that has a different requirement and a different insurance requirement versus, let's say, you're serving food to the public. Again, that has a different amount. So, but I just want people to keep in mind that certificate of insurance is necessary when it comes to selling anything within the park. So that's food and product. Okay, so let's see if there's any questions.
Bryce,
Yes.
thank you so much. If it is okay, just so that the viewers are also following on the questions, may I read them?
Oh, sure,
And then
please.
you go ahead and answer. So
Yes.
we have some questions here. Thank you
Sure.
again
No problem.
for the second, sharing of the information regarding concession stands. The first question is, there was someone that arrived late, so I will repeat a question that you answered in the initial presentation. How much are the fees to get a permit?
Sure. So again, I don't want to get into specifics because there are different fees and there are different deposits for what you're trying to do. So, like my example was driving on the grass. Like if you need to drive on the grass for, unloading off or loading and unloading things, that's $250 for deposit. And again, a deposit means that the money goes back to the person so long as there's no damages. Park staff will verify that. But I don't want to get into too much specifics because that's something that is very specific depending, again, on what you're doing. Like if you're using the gym or you need attendance service, opening the gym, for example, that's a different fee, stuff like that. So that's why I encourage working with the park directly because they will let you know what type of fees are going to be involved, what type of deposits are going to be involved, and or both. And then they'll work with you on working with your request and the permit.
Thank you. Now on to the second question. It says, if we have a permitted event and Department of Health permits for food, are these restrictions on the foods that are to be sold at the event?
So if you have a permitted event and Department of Health permits the food, are the restrictions? Ideally, again, we would like the food to be event related in some way. So if you have like a cultural heritage week of some sort, we would like the food to be somewhat part of your culture. It's not like we're trying not to make it like a free for all, like you can just bring in food. We would like it to be event related. So, again, that's a great one, like cultural heritage week of some sort, or a church event, like do you want to do hot dogs and hamburgers, whatever. That's kind of related, right? So we just ask that the food and try to get it as close to your event, related to your event as possible.
Thank you. The third question, can we cook food at the park if the event is permitted, or does the food have to be already cooked when we serve it?
So you can cook at the event. That is possible. Keep in mind, though, that there are requirements for that. There's certain insurance requirements. There's certain um, Department of Health food permit stuff. If you've already cooked it and brought it to the park, you can talk to Department of Health, but they may not. And again, I'm trying not to get too deep into the weeds, but they may not need to do. You may not need a food health permit for that. If you're only serving to like your organization, for example, you may not even need insurance. But again, that's real general. Work with park staff, and then you're going to work with our office, and then we'll let you know whether you're going to need any of those things for your permit itself. But generally speaking, it just depends on what you're trying to do.
Thank you. The next one is, do we need a permit to hold a political event at a park?
Yes. So expressive activities, and there are rules, and unfortunately, I apologize, I did not link that, but there are rules governing expressive activities, what you can and cannot do. Like, for example, you can't sell anything when it comes to expressive activities, but that's a whole that's a whole nother discussion. I don't want to get too deep into that. There's a lot of rules involved, and what you need to do, and how to get that started. So, but with that being said, yes, you can, but there is going to be some restrictions, and there's going to be a lot of rules that need to be followed.
So work with the park office.
Correct. So you'd work with the permit, I'm sorry, with the park office first, and then you'd work with our office as well, and we'll answer that question for you.
The next one is, how early, late can we hold an event at the park? Can it be outside their normal operating hours?
So I'll say this, no. Most parks have closure hours. We do not allow anything after closure hours. You can have an event, normally we say from opening to closing, but again, it depends on park availability, park staff availability, and all of that. So again, this is general. Work with park staff on that question, because they'll let you know if it's even possible or not. And again, some of these parks are unmanned, so they may, you may need an attendant. Again, they might have fees. Again, I can go on and on about that. So just work with park staff and they'll let you know. And again, if you come this way, we can also help you as well.
Next one, can you request wheelchair accessibility accommodations from DPR for an event?
What do we mean by that exactly? Sorry.
I am not sure.
Because most of our parks are wheelchair accessible, if I'm not mistaken. If they're not, oh, that's going to be a tough question to answer, to be
Okay.
honest. Yeah.
All right.
So that's something
To
that we'll
to
work
the
on.
viewer who asked about this question, if you can elaborate on the chat box, we would appreciate it, so we can try our best to answer it, especially Bryce. I'll move on to the next question, which is, if we're at an event and the trash cans are full, what would you recommend us do?
So that would be a park maintenance question. I don't think I'm going, that's not my realm, to be honest. I don't, Zach, or if somebody can chime in on this one and help me out. This is not my realm, unfortunately.
Hi, so normally if you're holding an event at a park, you would have already had a discussion with the park director of how big the event is, what it entails, and they would normally make arrangements with you so that they know that there's going to be more trash, so they would be coming around more often. And what they normally would do is work with you and provide you some extra trash bags, so that if it fills up quicker, then you have some extra trash bags on the side. And also, depending on the event itself, we might be asking that, because you're going to be generating so much trash, we might ask that you also rent like a dumpster. So depending on the event, depending on the size, depending how much trash is generated, that could also be something that is required. But normally for like at a picnic, you'd be working with the park director, and they could help by providing you some trash bags before, in case the maintenance isn't there to, switch out the bag immediately.
Thank you very much, Zach, for the input. Yes, again, like Bryce keeps referring back to the park office. So if you have a big event that may require more space for trash, please go ahead and work with the parks office. We will go on to the last question, which is how much insurance do we have to have for an
Yeah.
event?
So again, that's going to be more, it depends on the event. And again, that's why, I know I don't want to keep harping on it, but that's why you work with park staff, is because it depends on what you're trying to do. Like, for example, and I can give this example, like if you're looking for like to do refreshments or selling food, you need insurance, a minimum of bodily injury of 300,000 and property um, of 10,000, for example. So, but again, it depends on what kind of event you're running. Like if you're running a surf event or you're running something, another event, it may be very different than what I just said. So work with park staff. You're going to work with our office, especially for the insurance. I will let you know what the minimums are, and we go from there. I do want to make mention before we go on, Shanti, real quick, and I apologize. This is going way back, and I didn't cover it. When it comes to inflatables, so bounce houses, um, I know that's like the big thing now with picnics and all that. I want to make it very clear that no water should be used for any of the inflatables. Because of the water, I guess, issues or shortage, we're making it very clear that no water slides are allowed in the park. No water, actually no water bounce house or what have you is allowed. So any type of water, like a structure like that, cannot be used in the park at all. But I just want to make that very clear.
Well, if I may ask one more just clarifying question,
Sure.
because I know it's really important to differentiate. You were talking about certificate of insurance and then food to the public. Can you explain just so the community knows the difference between, because public is excluding members of that event, correct?
Yeah, so that means the general public. So if you're only holding it, like, for example, you're bringing food just for your organization, again, that's different than, hey, I want to feed everyone who comes to our event and whoever just shows up to the park. That's what I mean by general public. So like if you're holding it just for your members, for example, like your church group, for example, then there's different sets of rules than versus like, hey, whoever comes to our church event, even if they're not from our organization, can be fed. That would be like general public, for example, right? Because you're feeding somebody outside your organization. So that's what I mean by general public. Like it just depends again on what you're doing, and the requirements may change depending on that.
Thank you very much, Bryce. I know that there are still a lot of questions, so if you can keep your doors open, because if we have more questions, we will be sending them to you if we can communicate through email, and then if future posting attaching to this webinar is even possible for our viewers to continue to get information and be educated, especially on this. So I will go ahead, if possible. I want to bring everyone's attention, your viewers, all the viewers, if you can help our office fill out this survey to really provide a good representation of our feedback from especially the Pacific Islander community, since this webinar is targeted to our people. Your support on this is really appreciated. And so we have the link here. And also I want to just say that we appreciate everyone's time. And thank you for following this webinar. If you have questions, please share them. And I'd like to ask our audience again to invest in a moment or two today to take this survey. It's going to mean a lot to us. With that said, I just want to thank the Office of the Department of Parks and Recreation for your presentation, and also all our viewers for joining us today. Thank you, and you all stay safe.
Thank you.